Hello, Dr. Dan Miller here. You're on the 250 River with Dr. Dan for episode 41, which is a kind of a fortnight episode, meaning 2 weeks, meaning we're going to be looking at kind of the last half of the month of August 1775, but we're not doing the top five. We're not doing the top four. We're doing the top three with a little add-on at the end under the What's the Big Idea, Dan segment. So, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. 250 years ago this fortnight, the past 2 weeks of late August 1775, we're going to look at what's going on there. I'm going to make a quick prediction. Not even a prediction, really. This is a description. I don't know that I've had an episode as clear in my mind of its illustration of the connection between your leadership, the 250, and the American Revolution. Now, maybe that's an indictment of me. Maybe I've self-indicted. By the time we get to episode 41, that I'm making a statement like that. But whether it is or isn't an indictment, it's the truth as I sit here thinking about what I'm going to be talking with you about here today. Thanks for being here. Let's also thank Sarah Hallam as the advertiser, the sponsor for this week or fortnight's episode 41. Sarah is opening up a dancing school, a dance instruction school in Williamsburg 250 years ago today. And she would like anyone who has a young lady, a daughter, a sister, maybe even a wife perhaps, whomever, a young lady who wants to learn how to dance, the latest dances, the best dances. I'm your person to do this kind of instruction here in Williamsburg. You can pay by the session at the door, or you can take out a discounted year-long subscription. Either way, my doors are open, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you all of the dances that your young lady needs to know and needs to excel at. It's 250 years ago today. Thanks, Sarah, for this. One little amendment. When I found this advertisement in a newspaper from the Virginia Gazette, page 4, which is usually where the ads are most prominent in those newspapers, whoever had purchased it, whoever had owned it and read the newspaper, took out their pen, their quill pen in this case, and scribbled a little, frankly, smart-ass remark in her advertisement, and says in handwritten long form, "We're doing a war dance now." The end. Everybody's a critic. Everybody's got their comedic commentary to put in, don't they? Even 250 years ago today, whoever it was, the unnamed unknown, forever forgotten, reader and owner and holder at that moment of that newspaper, writing a kind of a smart aleck remark next to Sarah's ad. So there you go. Haven't really changed much at all. Let's do this. So we're going to frame it up. What's the big idea, Dan? We're going to start a little with this as my frame. Then we'll go into my top three, and then we'll wrap it up with a person you're going to want to know about, and we're going to wrap it up with this thing that I'm waving around too. So you're a leader now, 2025, whenever you stumble upon this. And you're in the middle of this great, big, major change, major cause, major moment that you're part of, you believe in, and you've committed to, and you're pushing for, and all of the rest. And you're in it. You're in it. Now, you don't have to be the leader of the leader of the leaders. You don't have to be the whole thing, but you're a leader in it, right? You have followers inside of this big cause and moment and event and action that's going on right now. You're there. And in being there, you've come to a conclusion of, I'm going to have, and I think we, you and me, followers, we have to do this other thing inside and as part of this great big cause and moment and action that we've devoted ourselves to. We're going to have to do this other thing as part of it. Maybe it's great, maybe it's not great, it's a risk, whatever. Let the future sort that out, but we're going to have to do it. So that's the dynamic we're looking at. That's the answer to what's the big idea. And I want you to keep that in the front of your mind as we go into today's story. Now, excuse me for reaching out of frame and all of this and leaning out of frame, and I got to get my coffee to fortify myself. We're going to have a special guest too shortly. So let's go with number 3 of the top 3 of this fortnight, 250 years ago. Number 3, Patrick Henry, 250 years ago this August, stands up at the 3rd Virginia Convention. That's the legislature or whatever that's kind of taken over control, day-to-day control, and foreseeable future control of the colony of Virginia on behalf of colonial rights. Patrick Henry, give me life, give me liberty, and all of that. Give me liberty, give me death. Patrick Henry stands up and says, I want to propose a resolution, and I want to read the resolution to my fellow delegates here in Richmond at the 3rd Virginia Convention, which goes essentially as follows. I resolve, I hope we vote for yes to the following, that the soldiers of Virginia, Virginian soldiers, who want to hear a sermon, a religious sermon or speech from a dissenting point of view, that they be allowed to do that. That dissenting preachers be allowed to preach Sunday services to Virginia soldiers, and voluntarily, whoever wants to attend those dissenting messages and services, that they're allowed to do that, because right now they're not. It's a crime. It's criminalized. You have to go to the Anglican Church or you're not going. So my resolution will decriminalize the attendance of Virginian soldiers at dissenting religious services. Now, we've got names for them: Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian. That's my resolution. I want you to vote yes, fellow delegates. Okay, stop that. I want to point one thing out. We just took a great big step toward what we all now know as religious freedom. One of the most important, globally important ideas, concepts, doctrines, and dogma that the American Revolution will produce for the rest of the world is the idea of religious freedom. Now, we've expanded it. Doesn't have to be Christian. Doesn't even have to be religion. But freedom of religious thought. This is a huge first step of Patrick Henry proposing this resolution. Now, why is he doing it? He's doing it because he knows that, A, he believes it, but B, there's another reason, which is for our big cause, our big movement, our big change that we're pushing for here. We got to have soldiers. And if we don't have soldiers, because it looks like there's going to be a war, there's already been bloodshed, organized bloodshed. If we don't have soldiers, we're done. And to get enough soldiers, we're going to have to let them worship as they like. So yes, mentally, spiritually, attitudinally, I'm for this idea. But practically, and to get enough guys who are going to pick up the guns, we got to let them worship as they want to, as Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, and not just as Anglicans. We're going to decriminalize religion. That is number 3. Remember what we talked about as the frame. Big cause, and we're going to have to do this other thing now as part of the big cause. Let's go to number 2. Get the right graphic. Number 2 in our top 3. A minister, we're still with this, a minister in New Hampshire, who's also the president of Dartmouth College. His name is Eliezer Wheelock. Dartmouth College has only been open a few years. Wheelock runs the place in order to educate and train and inspire future ministers, future Christian sermonizers, future evangelicals. He adds a real strong dose of the best academic subjects to that theology that he's teaching there at Dartmouth. He's writing a letter today, this fortnight, 250 years ago, to a fellow colonial rights supporter, the governor of Connecticut, Jonathan Trumbull. And in the letter, Wheelock says, I've been hearing reports, and he kind of parenthetically said, and I know you've been hearing them, I've been hearing reports that the British, the imperial rights crowd, the imperial power crowd, our opposition, down south in the southern colonies, Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, Maryland, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, those southern colonies, the British down there are trying to foment and ignite rebellions of the enslaved. They're trying to convince the enslaved black people to turn on their white enslavers, especially those who are colonial rights people. They're trying to overthrow them, and they're just trying to cause trouble and weaken our cause down there through these encouraged uprisings, slave revolts. Wheelock writes further, I've got a guy. His name is Caleb Watts. He's 20. He's half native, half black. He came to me with a rudimentary knowledge of English and literacy. I've mentored him, tutored him, coached him, lived with him, helped raise him, essentially. I've added a variety of other capabilities, geometry, rhetoric, logic, along with theology, Christian theology. I think, Governor, we can send this guy, if I can convince him, go down south and try to, because he's going to be viewed as black, go down south, get inside these plantation enslaved populations, find out what you can. In other words, be a spy, and then turn over the information you uncover about a potential uprising on any given plantation. Turn it over to one of ours, and we'll deal with it. That way we can prevent these slave revolts or enslaved revolts. He'll be our spy if I can convince him. What do you think, Governor? This is the first time that somebody in a position like the president of Dartmouth College from the north, the far north, New Hampshire, is proposing to do a pro-slavery action, a major pro-slavery action, a covert pro-slavery operation. It's the first time, because he's what Wheelock is saying. Now, he's not saying it, but he is saying it. If we don't do this, the white enslavers on our side in the South are going to turn against us. They're going to stop supporting us. They'll just kind of drop out, and our cause down there is going to wither and die. We've got to have all the colonies united, slave, free, enslaver, not enslaver. Everybody's got to be on the same side, on the pro-colonial side. We're going to help these guys out this way. It's the first time this has been offered. Really a big deal from north to south as a gesture. Now remember, this is Wheelock's idea that he's passed on to Governor Trumbull of Connecticut. So that's number two. So this is what the cause necessitates in Wheelock's proposal. Number one. And number one involves our guest. There's a woman. Her name is Mercy Otis Warren. She's a major influencer in Massachusetts and kind of in New England. She's avid pro-colonial rights. As a female voice, she's almost unrivaled in terms of her effectiveness, her prestige, and as I said a minute ago, her influence. She's an absolute leader as a pro-colonial rights woman. She writes plays, she writes songs, she writes poems, she writes essays, she writes beautiful private letters in this voice of hers that is so magnificent. Her classical training in Greek and Roman and everything else, as well as the Bible, is jaw-droppingly deep. Mercy Otis Warren today writes a friend of hers in England. And she says, oh my gosh, we have found him. We have found our, she won't say savior. She's too much of a Christian theologian to say Savior. That's not the word she would use. But we have found our person that the Savior sent to us. That God has sent to us too. And our person is this dude. George Washington, close buddy of mine. Brad made this for me. Thanks, Brad. And she writes in the letter, "Oh, you would just be amazing. He's got money, he's got wealth, he's got respect. More than that, all of that, he's got virtue. He's got virtue in private, he has virtue in public. He is the perfect person to be the commanding general of our army in this awful struggle that we're going to have to go through now to get our rights and our freedom and our liberty. He is the guy." I write in my Redux entry, by the way, about this, and I'm starting to say she's already chiseling the stone. You know, this statue kind of figure we have of Washington, she's already carving it out, chiseling it out. Never met the man. He hasn't won a battle. He hasn't even been in a skirmish yet. And he's Moses. Again, we're talking about what they don't say, but they really mean. That's what she doesn't say, but absolutely means. We're the Jews. This is Exodus. This is Moses. So I guess the big thing here for her is we need a Moses. Oh, and we have one. We found one. Now she will absolutely say that it's predestined, it's preordained, it's God directed that this man comes to the forefront and is chosen by the Continental Congress to become the commanding general of the Continental Army. A position he's held for a little less than 3 months. So, now we're going to go back to what's the big idea. Remember we talked about, you got this big cause you're part of. You love it. You've just, you're head first in it, and that's where you want to be. But along the way, there are these big crossroads, bends in the river, if you will, where we're going to have to go this direction as part of this. Sometimes it's always a risk. Sometimes it's a beautiful risk. Sometimes it's an ugly risk. Sometimes it feels like a heavenly risk. But we're going to have to do it. Now, I wonder, how do you think you do that? Have you done that before? How do you think you've done this? I can tell you there is a guy, and this, remember I said we're going to do 3 plus 1. Here comes the plus 1. Also as part of this fortnight, Paul Revere has produced a new form of paper money, brand new, in Massachusetts, and it's supposed to be tied to the new colonial government, pro-colonial rights government, you know, this new cause. It's a 2-shilling note. And on the front of the note, and by the way, can you imagine new parchment, how it feels in your paper, in your hand, and all of that? 2-shilling note, just out. He's the designer of the drawing. On the front, we have a guy holding a sword, and a guy holding in one hand and holding a copy of the Magna Carta in the other. So Revere would tell you that that's what our big cause is. And yes, these are all risks. And yes, some of these are glorious risks. And yes, some of these are ugly, stinky risks. And on and on. But they're risks in the name of the great big cause. And as far as Revere is concerned with his engraving, and this is essentially a symbol that goes in everybody's pocket who's carrying around this 2-shilling note. We're willing to die for our freedom. And our freedom is represented by the Magna Carta. I guess the question for you is, what would be the message we would have today in a freshly designed piece of currency? What would be the message we have today in this freshly designed currency of 2025? I don't know. And so that's one thing. The second thing I'll ask you, is does it really mean anything to have anything on the currency? Might as well he have a copy of Bozo the Clown on there, and it's as meaningful. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But Because I look on here and I wave something at you. Here's a $10 bill, Alexander Hamilton, as it would happen, on the front. But on the back, and I know you see this, "In God We Trust." There was a point in the 1950s where that was new, that was put on there purposely, just like Revere's putting on his copy of the Magna Carta. So I wonder, does that really mean anything? Does Revere's design suggest anything of any kind of cohesive power to it? Or is the cause a lot more fragile than what words can depict that are no longer than a tweet? I don't know. But as I said, leadership, the 250, the American Revolution, and the idea of the great big cause you're in, and these moments where you're making a decision and saying, yes, we're going to have to do this thing as part of this great big cause. All right. If you want to see some of the full Redux, go to today's entry. It's up over at historicalsolutions.com for August 28. As I said, episode 41 is kind of spanning 40 and 41, the 21st and the 28th of August, those last 2 weeks, full weeks of the month. So I hope you have a great day, a great Labor Day weekend coming up. Kind of do a little bit of a swing here from the calendar perspective, and later on in September, a swing from the lunar, heavenly, seasonal perspective as well. I'm Dr. Dan Miller. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.